We're coming on the air this morning because Venezuelan authorities are confirming that military areas are being targeted, and they are blaming the U.S.
Like me, many of you probably woke up on Saturday to find that the U.S. had bombed Venezuela.
This is coming after weeks of the U.S. ramping up pressure on the government of President Nicolas Maduro, including seizing 2 oil tankers and conducting deadly military strikes on alleged drug boat smugglers.
And kidnapped its ethically and electorally dubious but de facto President Nicolas Maduro.
We're learning more about what led to the president's decisive actions, and it could have been Maduro's dancing that was the last straw.
We now know more or less what happened.
He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit.
The U.S. attacked Caracas, the capital city of Venezuela, then kidnapping Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, flying them out of the country and bringing them to the U.S.
Damn straight we did!
Attorney General Pam Bondi referenced indictments for the couple in the Southern District of New York,
where he and his wife, Celia Maduro, will be held accountable.
So today I want to talk about what happened, how these events fit into history, and why it's imperative to stop Trump.
I don't want to feel vicious.
But perhaps the most important thing that I'll say today is about why, in some ways, this is hardly about Donald Trump at all.
Just give me somebody, a warm body.
And that fact matters a lot for what we can all be doing right now.
So with that, I leave you.
Now, we still don't know everything about how this attack unfolded.
How much do you think, though, this is about immigration? How much do you think this is about oil? How much do you think this is actually about drugs?
Within a larger pool of deaths, the BBC has reported that there are reports of 32 Cuban officers and intelligence agents who were killed.
There's been a long-standing agreement between Cuba and Venezuela,
with Cuba having been providing Maduro's personal security detail.
going back to the 2002 coup d'etat against the democratically elected at that point, the president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. He was temporarily overthrown for a few days in a US-backed coup.
Hauled into court. On Monday, Maduro entered a plea of not guilty and declared himself still president of Venezuela.
I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas. The judge cut him off.
The Miami Herald has been reporting since October that backroom negotiations that were brokered by Qatar had been happening. The administration here in D.C. was seeking the removal of Maduro and cooperation with U.S. interests from the current vice president in Venezuela and others who would, with her, stay in power in Maduro's absence.
The de facto leader there has now, for the first time, appeared on camera, demanding the immediate release of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, calling their capture a kidnapping.
And it's not clear if the administration was disappointed by the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez's demand for Maduro's return in the wake of the kidnapping.
See that pushback from Rodriguez, and ultimately...
Well, I don't think there was pushback. I think that,
she
frankly,
called it...
you know, you hear a different person than I hear.
But whatever the Trump administration was hoping for...
So you have spoken with her?
We talked to them, yeah.
Oh, you did speak.
They've been very good.
It's possible that there was really not any serious plan in place.
He effed around, and he found out.
Or that if it existed...
Breaking at this hour, this major development involving the U.S. and Venezuela. Sources telling ABC News tonight that the U.S. has now given Venezuela's interim leader a list of demands that must be met before Venezuela can sell its oil again.
That events are going to go at all the way the White House is hoping that they will.
Demanding Venezuela kick out Russia, Iran, Cuba, and sever economic ties with them.
The lack of any resolution beyond the kidnapping itself hasn't stopped Trump from discussing the control over the oil industry he plans to have.
We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars.
Or his associates from setting their sights on future seizures of land or people, from Cuba to Colombia to Greenland.
This commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba.
Deputy White House Chief of Staff and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller.
The United States of America is running Venezuela. By definition, that's true.
Who has taken the lead for some time now on the brutal operations.
Growing protests tonight in Minneapolis. An ICE agent shot a woman there, witnesses say, in the face as she was in her car. She is dead. He killed her.
Involving immigrant detention and enforcement in the U.S.
You can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else, but we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power.
He is said to be taking a more elevated role in overseeing U.S. interests in Venezuela as well.
The future of the free world, Jake, depends on America being able to assert ourselves and our interests without apology.
So it's important to keep in mind, first and foremost, that this operation is illegal. In an interview with Isaac Chotiner, incoming president of the American Society of International Law, yes, it does still exist, Una Hathaway explained, unfortunately, I don't think there's a legal basis for what we're seeing in Venezuela. There are certainly legal arguments that the administration is going to make, but all the arguments I've heard so far don't hold water.
We're going to head to the UN, where Samuel Moncado, permanent representative of Venezuela, is speaking to the United Nations Security Council.
And again, that's from an expert in the field.
The events of January 3rd constitute a flagrant violation of the UN Charter perpetrated by the US government, in particular, the violation of the principle of sovereign equality of states.
Trump himself has agreed that the U.S. kidnapped Maduro.
It's all right. It's not a bad term. Go ahead.
And now he is looking to exercise dictatorial power at home.
He's a dictator.
And abroad.
They always call me a dictator.
His administration is mired in the dead dreams and the rhetoric of the 20th century.
Senator Rand Paul is the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee and a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Treating oil as the most critical international resource and communism as the greatest threat to the country.
What I would say is, look, there's no love lost for Maduro. I've written a book, The Case Against Socialism. I'm glad he's gone. I've described how teenagers are scrounging for food in Venezuela.
If Republicans in Congress refuse to act, there really aren't a lot of institutional means to stop the U.S. violation of Venezuelan sovereignty.
This is not a new thing. So there's a bigger, broader debate we should be having here. And I don't think telling the people of Venezuela, we're coming, the gringos are coming, we're going to run your country, oil companies will come in and run you like we did in the 19th century. I think that even our friends will resist that.
As Steve Luddick wrote this week for his One First newsletter, a blatantly unlawful use of military force overseas will go unremedied, because there's no viable legal pathway to challenge it, and because the one branch of government historically in a position to hold the executive accountable in these cases, you might remember it, Congress, has become completely feckless, not just in general, but in pushing back against unlawful unilateral uses of military force specifically. When I first started this podcast, I wanted to give examples of how we in the U.S. have been repeating grim history at home and abroad. We are seeing a return to power kind of a past that never got left behind in the world. People seem to be able to see these repetitions more easily.
We aren't on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We are in the middle of it.
In part because the governing powers currently are embracing the parallels.
This whole period that happened after World War II, where the West began apologizing and groveling and begging
I don't even
and
know,
engaging these
honestly,
vast
what you're talking about right
schemes.
now.
But today I'll run through a little bit of the history anyway, just to make the current pattern clear. Under the Monroe Doctrine, announced 2 centuries ago, the U.S. claimed a right to block foreign governments from influencing the leadership and policies of any nation in North and South America and Central America.
In 1823, few European countries took the Monroe Doctrine seriously.
The doctrine was established in the face of the expanding independence of many countries in the Western Hemisphere.
By the 1890s, the U.S. now is becoming a significant power. Now, when the U.S. spoke, now people paid attention.
A century after the Monroe Doctrine was adopted, It was expanded by Teddy Roosevelt.
In 1902, the Venezuelan government defaulted on loans that they had secured from European countries. And countries actually sent their fleet to block Venezuelan ports in an attempt to force the government to pay the debts that they owed. And when Roosevelt saw that happening, he said, now, wait a minute, we will collect it for you.
Who claimed that even beyond European interference, the United States also had the responsibility to preserve order and protect life and property in these other countries.
The U.S. was viewed through a different prism after the interventions began in 1905 under the Roosevelt corollary.
In 1933, FDR shifted gears somewhat, emphasizing collaboration over military intervention with his good neighbor policy.
And that was the end of the corollary.
But in the wake of the Second World War, the threat of global communism was seen as justifying just the kind of interventions authorized originally by the Monroe Doctrine.
In 1954, the CIA carried out a coup to oust the sitting president of Guatemala and assist the United Fruit Company's land interests under the guise of the Red Scare from the Soviet Union.
And across the 20th century as a whole, the U.S. interfered to install or directly support dozens of dictators.
This would be the first intelligence operation of many carried out by the U.S. and Latin America in the name of anti-communism.
Now, Trump is pretty incurious and uninformed.
But Arnold Palmer was all man.
And he generally seems to be aware of only a handful of historical moments.
And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man.
But his advisors are able to capture his attention and his imagination.
He took showers with the other pros. They came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Just as Cheney and Rumsfeld aimed under George W. Bush to finish the war in the Middle East.
You regret every single casualty. I visit with the families. We spend time with the wounded when they come back. I visit with the troops every chance I get. It's the toughest thing the president has to do, but it is absolutely the right thing to do, too.
That they had been forced to quit during his father's presidency.
I think for us to have gone on and taken Baghdad, sort of accepted the responsibility for the political future of Iraq, set ourselves up for a long-term occupation of an Arab nation, I don't think would have been well received in the region.
Donald Trump's advisors have used his fetish for fossil fuels.
How about we're buying oil from Venezuela? When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil.
To attack Venezuela.
You know where the oil, their oil is garbage. It's horrible. The worst you can get, tar. It's like tar. And to refine it, you need special plants.
And so we repeat a very predictable history, in part because America has erected only limited guardrails without managing to fundamentally change, deeply and permanently.
Well, I think to put it in context, this is the biggest thing that has happened in U.S. foreign policy to Latin America in 65 years, since the Bay of Pigs.
Since the country's Monroe Doctrine adventurism first began.
It's interventionist, it kind of looks like. And it seems like a return to a different era.
Almost. It's a return to a different era.
Is it a good thing?
I think it is a good thing.
There's a long history of leaders sparking foreign conflicts to protect their rule at home in moments of crisis.
Trump wasn't going after drug trafficking. You talked that in earlier segments of releasing Hernandez and stuff like that from Honduras. He wasn't interested in restoring democracy. Maybe he wanted to do something about checking Russia and China's influence. Really, what he wanted to do was to distract.
That is part of what's happening here, as it has happened elsewhere. Yet it's important to note that Trump himself is not the cause of all our ills, because what's happening is part of a long arc that brought him to power.
If the medium is the message, and it doesn't matter what we say on TV, why are we all here tonight? And why am I asking this question?
Donald Trump didn't hijack the system. He is the fulfillment of a long, dominant strain of American presidential power.
I didn't say it didn't matter what you asked on TV.
The medium is the message in this case, too.
I said that the effect of TV, the message of TV, is quite independent of the program. That is, there is a huge technology involved in TV which surrounds you physically. And the effect of that huge service environment on you personally is vast. The effect of the program is incidental.
Donald Trump is our sick nation, showing us our worst side, the country's delusions, gullibility, love of gross excess, cruelty, hypocrisy, and the worship of money.
I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago. And they're, highly respected bankers and lawyers and others.
In every state, there are always unethical actors.
Today on Face the Nation, Senator Joseph R. McCarthy, Republican of Wisconsin,
who, due to ideology, perversion, or both, want to oppress the vulnerable and garner power for themselves.
I've been so busy being investigated and preparing for this lynch bee starting tomorrow that I haven't had an opportunity to...
You call a meeting of the United States Senate a lynch bee?
Trump is both their leader and their conduit.
This man has been fighting communism. He's been showing that over 20 years the Democrat Party has been infiltrated. Therefore, we're going to get him.
Well, now, Senator...
I think a lynching bee is a good name for it, Bill.
Senator...
For anyone who worries about unfairly demonizing the Republican Party in all this, let me say that until radio and television propaganda channels were established and mainstreamed in the wake of Nixon, it could have gone either way.
The era of big government is over.
One can even imagine a Clintonian Democratic Party of expanding corporate interests and power leaning farther into the scapegoating of Black America via even worse rhetoric about super predators and sister soldier moments.
I know she is a young person, but she has a big influence on a lot of people. And when people say that, if you took the words white and black and you reversed them, you might think David Duke was giving that speech.
Clinton's second administration, which furthered the Reagan-era dismantling of parts of the social safety net in this country, could have easily set the stage for a Democratic Party caving entirely to a different kind of dangerous populism in the U.S. than the model we have at present. But that's not where we are.
To those who insist that the era of big government is over, hear me when I say this. No longer will City Hall hesitate to use its power to improve New Yorkers' lives.
And you could argue that it's the billionaires, not the Republicans, who have shattered journalism and broken our information networks. But our institutions caved to those billionaires' interests first.
Musk is funding the Republicans again. He's giving money for the 2026 U.S. midterm elections.
And the billionaires have overwhelmingly abetted the Republican Party in its battle over the last half century against functioning government, as well as its denial of human rights and civil rights.
Tonight, Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok coming under fire from regulators across the globe over a rise in non-consensual and sexualized deepfake images of women and children.
It's important to note that Donald Trump is not a tragic figure.
I think it's a terrible thing.
There is no intellectual or spiritual conflict happening, no struggle for his soul.
They're asking me questions about Jeffrey Epstein. I thought that was finished.
No noble goal defeated by his personal limitations.
I built many ballrooms and many buildings, and that's my greatest strength, actually.
Whatever his current mental incapacity or illness, he has always been incapable of reflection or regret.
The now exonerated members of the group known as the Central Park Five are suing Donald Trump for defamation after comments he made about them at a presidential debate last month. The complaint accuses the former president of making, quote, demonstrably false statements while on stage in Pennsylvania in September.
They pled guilty. Then they pled, we're not guilty.
Again, all that not true.
He is the pure, untrammeled desire for power and a greater ability to punish anyone he wants.
But we can't take a chance after having done this incredible thing last night of letting somebody else take over, where we have to do it again. We can do it again, too.
All this will continue until we stop it.
Nobody can stop us. There's nobody that has the capability that we have.
Not only Is Nicolas Maduro a monstrous leader? Other countries have terrible leaders as well.
I haven't seen it, Monica. What is the president saying?
The president is saying, Hallie, that he has just watched the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis. He says, quote, "It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was, in the president's own words, he is making this assessment. It's unclear with what evidence, but the president is saying the woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator."
And looking at our own Trump, you can see the similarities to people like Berlusconi, Hitler, Duterte, Orban, and others.
The speaker and some others have said that this driver was weaponizing her vehicle. What do you say to that?
I think that their editorializing of this event to justify a public murder is disgusting. It is horrifying. And watch it for yourself. Watch it for yourself. And make that assessment to yourself and which of these leaders are lying to you with their statements. Thank you.
Presidents in the United States have always knocked at the door of unlimited and extra legal power.
Apparently this attack's been under planning for 3 or 4 months, and so there's plenty of time to ask Congress's permission. I think it's disdainful, but I don't think he's the first president to do it.
They have all been flawed men in a flawed country, and most have succumbed to one degree or another to the temptation to use force that was illegitimate under international law.
Even those who celebrate the demise of the socialist authoritarian regime in Venezuela, as I do, should give pause to granting the power to initiate war to one man.
Whether through aggressive war, covert assassinations, unauthorized bombings, or drone strikes on civilians. It is vanishingly rare for a president to reject these kinds of measures wholesale.
The power to initiate war is so vast a power that it must be confined by checks and balances.
As happened, for instance, when through a veto attempt, Harry Truman failed to stop Congress's attempt to give him the power to declare a state of emergency to round up dissident civilians and put them into camps in 1950.
President Truman called it the greatest danger to freedom of speech, press, and assembly since the Alien and Sedition laws of 1798. He also said it was a mockery of the Bill of Rights and that it was a long step towards totalitarianism.
So the opportunity to commit crimes under international law and violate sovereignty is always a temptation for U.S. presidents.
Less than courageous members of Congress fall all over themselves to avoid taking responsibility to avoid the momentous vote of declaring war. But make no mistake, bombing another nation's capital and removing their president is an act of war, plain and simple.
In the past, there has always been public pressure to resist for fear of consequences. But over the course of the United States' existence, what it has gotten away with is a long list.
I should have kept all you from getting that. Fine, okay. Yes, sir.
That's President Nixon speaking in 1972. Peter Kornblue, the National Security Archive. Can you explain to us what Nixon's talking about here?
But as the human sum of nearly all the ways in which our country has been flawed.
Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger launched a preemptive strike against Salvador Allende. They decided to stop him from being inaugurated as president of Chile. He hadn't even set foot in the Moneda Palace when Nixon and Kissinger just simply decided to change the fate of Chile. Nixon instructed the CIA to make the Chilean economy scream.
Trump's greed for unbridled power means that he is opening all the doors at which the temptation to use extrajudicial power knocks. And that is a difference. And while some of the countries he has in his sights are oppressive ones that do harm to other nations abroad,
President Trump says the U.S. is ready to intervene. In a social media post, the commander-in-chief said, quote, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters."
The U.S. always has the potential to do the most harm because for now, though probably not forever, the United States is the dominant power in the world.
Meantime, the president's reacting to criticism about his ambitions for Greenland. Secretary of State Marco Rubio reportedly playing down prospects of the U.S. taking it by force in a closed-door meeting yesterday on Capitol Hill.
Outside of nuclear conflict, the U.S. capacity for dangerous and destabilizing international crime sprees is far greater than that of any other country. And Trump is leaning into it.
But a statement from the press secretary last night kept U.S. military action on the table.
Fundamentally changing the country will rely on providing a better life for people who have ceased to believe it's possible.
Anat Shakur-Osorio is the principal of ASO Communications and host of Words to Win By podcast. She's an expert on why certain messages falter where others deliver.
The limited guardrails that had been established in the U.S. before to protect the poor, disabled, and historical targets of discrimination, or to provide for public health and safety at home, not to mention restrictions on military adventurism abroad, those have all been shown to be woefully inadequate.
If voting was the way that we were going to exit this authoritarian trap, then it would have worked in 2018. It would have worked in 2020. It would have worked to the extent that we staved off the worst of the red wave in 2022. And I don't need to tell you, the cat came back the very next day.
Through community action and pressure on our representatives, we can negotiate small restorations of these measures in the present to save lives. But they won't be sufficient.
The reason why even defeating Trump himself in 2020 didn't do it is the same reason why the Law and Justice Party is back in Poland, is the same reason why we see this kind of pattern with authoritarian regimes. And it's because we have an economic problem that is masquerading as a political problem.
We have to reimagine government entirely.
People are pissed as fuck. And they're pissed everywhere in the world. And unless and until we actually confront the underlying root problem, which is that a handful of billionaires have purchased themselves politicians to do their bidding, and the discomfort that that extends across political parties.
On the big picture side, we need to elect representatives and senators in state legislative bodies and in Congress who believe that government has a vital role in improving the lives of constituents.
The thing that we have to do is give people a sense of their own agency and a sense that actually what you do matters and what you do can make a difference in your own life. And that on-ramp, that activation on-ramp leads to voting.
On a more granular side, that can be done by embracing specific policies that we know about but have failed to adopt. Congestion pricing in New York is just one example, one which turned out to be radical in its effects, but well understood in advance by its successes elsewhere. People were alarmed about how it would work in practice.
Fewer cars, less pollution, crashes and traffic injuries are down, and $15 million in new funding for transit improvements.
But it has been a gift to the city, reducing traffic, raising revenue, and improving the quality of life for millions overnight.
We can say that we've perhaps permanently changed people's behavior, and there's no reason for them to go back.
From vast troves of research on things like more accessible healthcare, universal basic income, and housing the unhoused, we have a lot of data on measures that would transform the everyday lives of people in the U.S. They are doable in many locations already and can be prioritized in others. We have a lot of information on how stabilizing other parts of the world with aid instead of military intervention is very much in the U.S. interest. But all these failed policies that the Trump administration is emphasizing to the exclusion of nearly everything else will resurface again and again in our future, even after Trump is gone, until we don't just battle against the extraordinary actions themselves, but also create a government that functions and serves people. One issue in doing that is the degree to which business interests, the interests of the ultra-wealthy and profit-seeking as national pursuit, have been valorized in the U.S. at the expense of everything else. In the case of the attack on Venezuela, Trump suggested this week that oil companies had been tipped off in advance to the operation.
Before and after.
But the economy of coal and oil that Trump ran on during both his successful campaigns for president is a losing economy. And the U.S. will remain mired in the past in every way and will continue to wreak havoc here and overseas as long as people who vote cannot imagine a future in a country that actually meets their needs. Our current crisis marks the ignorance and the inanity of the Trumpian era while also carrying the weight of history. It's easy to give up hope that things could change.
Too often in our past, moments of great possibility have been promptly surrendered to small imagination and smaller ambition.
Yet I think that we absolutely can shape the future.
They want to know if the struggles that afflict them can be solved. They want to know if it is right to hope again.
The reaction in Venezuela has been subdued, according to recent reporting from The Guardian. Even those who are happy to see Maduro gone are worried about what will come next. Limited protests have begun in U.S. cities, but it's not yet clear what shape the future will take. You've heard me talk before about showing up for public demonstrations against Trump and his policies, and I do believe there is a national movement being cultivated by No Kings and by anti-war protests. This year will feel like a century. But Trump and his cronies are already tremendously unpopular. We have so much space in which to offer Americans a vision of a better future.
We will set an example for the world.
But beyond this long year ahead, be thinking on an even bigger scale. As Laura Helmuth, my former editor for freelance pieces at The Washington Post, Slate, and Scientific American, wrote this week, science is a good indicator of the scale on which we have to think to make real and lasting change. Of course, there will be things that we have to react to in the moment, but we also need to make sure to move slow and build things, as so many scientific enterprises have shown us. If at any given juncture, our president is just the symptom, the means by which the national illness makes itself known, then the goal has to be to actually change the country so it doesn't cough up someone like Donald Trump. Take up the challenges of the moment, but also pick a policy that you believe would make the country a better place over time, and work close to home over the long term to bring that one good thing into the world. And that's it.
Thanks for listening to Next Comes What. Please share this with one person who's looking for ways to survive this mess. To support this podcast, please become a paid subscriber at AndreaPitzer.com and consider giving Next Comes What a 5-star review where you get your podcasts.